Dear students, after studying this module, you shall be able to reflect on Allport's life history, define the notion of personality as advanced by Allport, identify the cornerstones of Allport's approach to personality and characteristics of a healthy person. You will also be able to understand the major tenets of the trait theories, know the assessment of methods in Allport's theory, and also you will be able to evaluate Allport's trait approach to personality. Dispositional domain. The dispositional domain, or more commonly referred to as a trait approach, deals essentially with the manner in which individuals are different from one another. The study of traits make up the dispositional domain. Traits are generalized action tendencies or dispositions that people possess in varying degree. They are relatively steady over time and reliable over situations, and lends coherence to a person's behavior. Variation in the strength and combination of traits lead to individual differences in personality. The fundamental goal of personality psychologists in the dispositional domain is to recognize the imperative trait or characteristics that can be used to summarize an individual's personality. The focus is on developing a taxonomy or classification system that would describe the personality structure of an individual. The dispositional domain is also heavily concerned with the measurement of personality. It uses quantitative statistical technique to measure personality traits. Influential personality tests have been developed that are often used in educational, clinical, vocational and other settings. Thus, the major question for psychologists working in the dispositional domain are: how many personality traits exist? What is the best taxonomy or classification system for traits? How can we best discover and measure these traits? And how do traits interact with situations to produce behaviors? Although the central tenets of modern trait theories are not novel, in their modern form they owe a great deal to three founding fathers of trait psychology: Gordon Allport, Raymond Cattell and Hans Einzig. In this module, we will be examining trait theories advanced Gordon Allport. Allport's approach to personality theory. Freud's and psychoanalysis versus Allport's approach. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis was the major thrust in the theory of personality around the same time, but Allport disagreed. According to him, an emotionally healthy individual, functional rationally and unconscious term, who is aware of and controlled by the forces which motivates him. Allport did not support the idea of unconscious forces instructing a mature individual personality, rather considered it to be only vital in neurotic or disturbed behavior. The role of the past in determining the present, which is called historical determinism. Allport did not support humans to be controlled by their childhood conflicts and past experiences. Rather, he emphasized the importance of the present and one's vision of the future. Allport stated that we are caught up with our future, whereas psychology is busy tracing us into the past. Allport did not support the collection of the data from emotionally disturbed individuals. According to him, an abnormal personality operated at an infantile level, and the suitable way to studying it was by gathering data from emotionally healthy adults. One should refrain from comparing the population of disturbed children and animals with normal adults. Now, what is personality? Allport, in his book Pattern and Growth in Personality, traced the etymology of the word persona back to early Greek roots. Together with the intrusions and old Latin connotation, the word personality comes from persona, which refers to the theatrical mask by Roman actors during the 1st and 2nd centuries BC. After tracing the historical record of the phrase, he presaged 49 definitions of personality as used in philosophy, theology, law, psychology and sociology. He then presented 15th definition in 1937, which was the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his unique adjustments to his environment. He gave this definition in 1937. In the year 1961, he altered the last sentence of the definition that determine his characteristic behavior and thoughts. The alteration was noteworthy and echoed his proclivity for precision. By 1961, he understood the sentence adjustments to his environment might mean that individuals simply adapt to their surroundings. In the later part of his description, he communicated the notion that behavior is adaptive but also expressive. People may have an adjusting nature but thus bend in accordance to the environment they are in, and they also relate with their environment with an approach to fine tune to them. Each and every word that is selected in his definition communicate exactly what he wishes to say to the readers. By the term dynamic organization, Allport implies that the diverse facets of personality have interrelatedness and integration among them. Personality is patterned and organized. Nonetheless, the organization can constantly modify. Therefore, the qualifier termed as dynamic, one cannot term personality as static and is constantly evolving organization. Psychosocial emphasize the importance of both the physical as well as psychological facets of personality. The word determine implies action, suggesting that personality is something and does something. Therefore, personality refers to the individual that is behind the face and being that is behind the actions, not just our behavior or simply the mask that we wear in front of the people. By the word characteristics, he simply meant uniqueness. The word character initially suggested an engraving or marking terms giving flavor to what Allport's meaning of characteristic. All people stamp their unique engraving on their personality, and their characteristics, behavior and thought patterns set them apart from others. The word behavior and thought basically refers to anything the person does. They are omnibus phrase meant to include internal behavior and external behavior such as words and actions. Allport's all-inclusive definition of personality suggests that humans are product as well as process. People have organized structure and simultaneously enjoy the capability of change. The coexistence of pattern is with growth and that of order of with diversification. Consequently, personality is psychological and physical, including overt behaviors and covert thoughts. It is something and more importantly does something. Now, what is the role of conscious motivation? Allport extensively highlighted the significance of conscious motivation and held that the healthy individuals are mostly aware of their actions and the motivations behind them. To emphasize on conscious motivation, he focuses on the interaction with Freud. Allport 1967 stated that his motivation was fairly conscious. He wished to know Freud's idea about dirt phobia in a young child. While Freud supposed a core unconscious connotation to the little boy's story, self-report at face value was what was believed by Allport. According to him, the experience taught him the depth psychology for all its merit may plunge too deep, and that two psychologists would do well to give full recognition to manifest motives before probing the unconscious. However, he refused to ignore the subsistence or the worth of unconscious processes. Hidden impulses and sublimated drives are the basic that drive the motivation was something that was noticed by him. He stated that self-defeating automatic repetition are motivated by the unconscious tendencies are the most compulsive behaviors. Such behavioral symptoms could be easily be seen right from the start of the childhood of a person and continues into the adult years of the person. What are the characteristics of a healthy person? The attributes of mature personality were theorized by Allport in 1937, way before Maslow spoke of self-actualization. Allport was quite anxious to search his own way in the humanistic ground of psychology right after completing his PhD in the year 1922, even though he was not skilled in mathematics, biology, lab studies, or medicines. Broad assumptions to appreciate Allport's notion of the mature personalities are: first, branded by proactive behavior are the psychological mature people, that is, along with replying to the external stimuli, they also willfully act upon their surroundings in various new and innovative ways and make their environment respond to them. Proactive behavior is directed at reducing tension and also at creating new tensions. These are higher chances of mature personalities over disturbed personalities to be motivated by conscious process, as they tend to be more flexible and autonomous than the unhealthy people who try to get motivated by the conscious process. Disturbed or unhealthy people are usually led by the unconscious motives that are seen in them from the childhood. Third, a trauma-free childhood is usually experienced by the healthy people, even though there may be a lot of conflicts and suffering in the later years of life. Quirkiness and eccentricities can also be seen in healthy people, which make them unique. Although as people get older they become more and more mature, still age is not an essential for maturity. Then the next question arises: what are the more explicit requirements for psychological health? Allport in 1961 acknowledged 6 standards for the mature personality. First, an extension of the sense of self. What does that mean? It means people who are mature usually discover and take part in the events that are beyond themselves. They prefer not being self-centered and are able to occupy themselves into problems and activities that are not centered on them. They have a selfless curiosity in work, play and recreation. Social interest, family and spiritual life are significant for such people. Eventually, such activities form a vital part of their lives. The summary of the condition given by him was that the self-love is present in every human being, but self-extension is the quality of a human being that marks his maturity. Second is warm relating of self to others. Mature people have the capability to love others in an intimate and empathetic manner. Warm relating is naturally dependent on people's skill to expand their sense of self. Mature people can love others unselfishly and non-possessively only by looking beyond themselves. People who are psychologically healthy treat each other respectfully and usually realize what their needs, desire and hope coincide with the needs, hopes and desire of the other. Also, a healthy sexual attitude is possessed by psychologically healthy people, and they also refrain from exploiting others for personal gratification. Third is emotional security or self-acceptance. Mature individuals acknowledge themselves for what they are and what they have, emotional poise. They don't overreact or go over the board in disguise to show how upset they are or when they are just having a bad day. They don't prefer spending time on minor irritation and are aware that disappointments and hassles are an integral part of life. Fourth is realistic perception of their environment. They are basically in tune with the shared world as they are problem oriented and are not self-centered. They do not twist the reality, nor they do live in a fantasy world of their own. Fifth is insight and humor. Mature people are usually sorted and they recognize themselves pretty well. They do not play the blame game with others and possess a harmless sense of humor, because of which they are able to enjoy a good laugh and do not indulge into cheap topics of a laugh upon, and nor do they try to bring their laughter from others. According to Allport in the year 1961, insight and humor were considered to be the most important and strongly related facets of one same notion called self-objection. Healthy individuals are capable of observing the incongruities and absurdities in life as they see themselves with objectivity and have no need to put on airs or to pretend. Unifying philosophy of life is the last. Healthy people have a lucid picture of the purpose of life. Without this stance, their insight would be bare and unfruitful, and their humor would be petty and skeptical. The unifying philosophy of life could or could not be religious, but Allport personalities seem to believe that a mature religious orientation is a vital ingredient in psychological maturity. Now, key ideas in Allport's trait theory to personality. First is structure of personality, personal disposition. For Allport, the central structure of personality are those which allows for the depiction of the person in terms of individual characteristics or personal disposition. Allport delineated a trait or disposition as a generalized neuropsychic structure with the ability to make many stimuli functionally equivalent and to initiate and stir dependable forms of adaptive and stylistic behavior. In other words, a trait illustrates sifting of experience through self to impress a personal structure upon the world. For instance, a trait anxious person may deduce a variety of stimuli as threats. Beside traits create response, consistency and help accomplish adaptive and expressive goal, they remain core conjecture of modern trait theory. The expressions peculiar to the individual is important and it indicates Allport's primary ideographically stand on its trait. While this viewpoint has been valued of social cognitive personality psychology, trait theory has been dictated by the nomothetic stance that seeks to support traits which are consequential for all individuals. Allport, though the personality traits are predispositions to respond in a similar manner to dissimilar kind of stimuli. Rather, traits are unswearing and lasting ways of reacting to our environment. He summed up those characteristics of trait as real and existing within each of us, not merely theoretical construct made up to account for behavior. Second, one with a determining behavior where traits do not arise in response to any particular stimuli but in response to many. Motivation everyone to look around and search for the suitable stimuli with whom one must interact and produce behavior. Third is empirical demonstration is possible. One can easily make out the other person's trait over a period of time by simply observing his responses to various stimuli. The traits might be interrelated and may also overlap on one another, even thought they might be representing the response to separate stimuli. Traits are also very depending upon stimuli situation, stating for example, the person might showcase his trait for disorderliness in response to one stimuli and may show the traits of neatness in response to the same stimuli but under some different circumstances. Levels of personal disposition. Personal dispositions are placed on a continuum of importance from center to periphery. Cardinal disposition. Some individuals have a prominent characteristics or dominant outstanding passion that it dominates their lives or cardinal dispositions. They are so palpable that they cannot be concealed. Practically each action in a person's life spin around this one cardinal disposition. For instance, a power-hungry person may display the need for power even in consequential circumstances. Usually people hardly possess a cardinal disposition, but there are a few who do. Those are frequently identified by that particular quality. Allport recognized a number of historical people and fictional characters who possess such a dominating disposition that they have given our language a new world. For example, chauvinistic, narcissistic, sadistic, etc. Central dispositions. Almost everyone has many central dispositions which usually incorporated around 5 to 20 very different characteristics around which lives of people are focused. In the year 1961, Allport stated that central dispositions are those which would be written in an accurate letter of recommendation. Stating for example, we can say that a person has many qualities in him but he is he's intelligent, he's kind, funny at the same time, he's possessive and honest, he's extremely ambitious and he's very competitive. These major characteristics do not control the generality of a cardinal trait. Although these characteristics control a person's behavior and response in many situations toward various stimulus. Secondary dispositions. Less secondary dispositions are less in number than the central dispositions and are not easily noticeable. Each and every person has several secondary dispositions that are not central to the personality of the person, still occurs with certain regularity and are responsible for much of the one's specific behavior. For example, a person may like hot chocolate, prefer the winters, and so on. The three levels that are stated above of personal disposition are subjective points on a continuous scale, from those that are most stable to those that are least stable. Cardinal disposition, which are extremely important in a person, shade into central disposition that are less direct but nonetheless spot the individual unique. Central disposition guiding a person's adaptive and stylistic behavior blend into secondary disposition that are less descriptive of the individual. However, we cannot say that a person's secondary disposition are less powerful than other person's central disposition. Interpersonal comparison are unsuitable to the personal disposition, and such an attempt transforms the personal disposition into common traits. Motivation and stylistic disposition. All personal dispositions are dynamic, that is, the people possess power that are motivational. Nonetheless, few could be felt more impactful than the rest, and Allport called these powerful experience disposition motivational disposition, and they receive their motivation from basic needs and drives. While personal disposition less strongly experienced are stylist disposition, although they have in them some of the motivational powers. A guide to the action could be considered for the stylistic disposition. On the other hand, motivational disposition are responsible for the initiation of the action. Properium. Some personal disposition, motivational or stylistic, are proximal to the heart of personality, while rest are usually on the margin. Dispositions that are the center of an individual's personality are considered to be an important part of the self as they are being experienced the most. These features are referred by a person by a term like that is me or that is mine. All features that are particularly mine fit into Properium. Properium was used by Allport to refer to all those behaviors and characteristics that people regard as warm and crucial in their lives. One must remember that Properium is not the whole personality, as many characteristics and behavior that a person possesses may exist only on the periphery of personality. These non-properiate behavior consist of basic drives and needs ordinarily met and satisfied without difficulty, ethnic customs such as saying hello to others, wearing clothes, etc., and habitual behavior like brushing one's teeth, which can be performed automatically and are not crucial to the person's sense of self. As the warm center of personality, the Properium includes those facets of life that a person regards significantly to a sense of self-identity and self-enhancement. A person's value and the consistent and the individual component of a person's conscience are included in the Properium. The conscience shared by many people in a particular culture could be peripheral to a person's sense of personhood and therefore would be outside the Properium of the person are called generalized conscious. Functional autonomy. The current peripheral motives determine the early development of the person and help in shaping them. Gradually, as Properium developed, shift was seen to properiate striving, that is, the use of instant energies that help in moving towards complete maturity. From peripheral motives to function properly as a mature adult, how should we get rid of the infantile motives is the most important question. According to Allport, the answer is present in general law of motivation. Functional autonomy. According to functional autonomy, motives of adult are self-sustaining and quite diverse. The bond that is built with the past is broken slowly and gradually as a person matures. People who are mature do not depend on their parents for anything, and they develop the ability to conduct themselves and set up rules for their own self. Therefore, the concept of functional autonomy given by Allport work as a bridge between two phases: development phase where the striving are immature and the mature phase where motives are maturely decided. One must notice that the concept given by Allport answers why and not how. It explains the shifts that are there in the process of development of a person. He had to struggle a lot to be able to come up with an explanation of his phenomena. Summary. Allport was eclectic in his recognition of ideas and focused on the conscious as a replacement for the unconscious, and proposed that present and future stirred the personality more than the past. Normal people were chosen by him to conduct his studies rather than people who were emotionally disturbed. The thoughts and the characteristics behavior of the individual are determined by the psychophysical system of the dynamic organization and is called personality. Heredity, environment, and diverse from the various childhood experiences together form a product called personality. Conscious process play a major role in the motivating the people that are psychologically healthy. They possess an extended sense of self, they are able to relate warmly to others and are also able to accept themselves for who they are. They have a realistic perception of the world and possess insight, humor and unifying philosophy of life. Traits are dependable, lasting predisposition to react in the similar manner to dissimilar stimuli. Common traits are those that are shared by many people, whereas individual traits and personal disposition are unique to an individual and are not common among many people. Traits are the commanding in nature over central traits are called the cardinal traits. Secondary traits are those that are displayed in a manner that is least noticeable and are not consistent like other traits. Personal disposition initiating actions are called motivational traits, while those guiding actions are called stylistic traits. Behavior and personal disposition that are warm and crucial to our life that we regard as peculiarly our own is referred to as Properium. Self-sustaining and independent motives that are different from the motives originally responsible for a behavior are referred to as functional autonomy.